Hello, my name is Matt Brown, Solutions Architect here at Endor Labs, and welcome back to our Academy for Open Source Dependencies. We're going to talk about visibility. So one of the last videos we talked about what is risky about open source dependencies. Visibility is one of those things, right? You can't really make any risk decisions unless you know what components you have in your environment and what risks that they actually pose, right? So you don't know what you can't see. And a lack of visibility in of itself is a risk. And not knowing if something exists means you're really accepting that risk it could bring into your environment. You want to gain that visibility. You want supervision, right? This is a very early visibility step, and it really involves looking across your application footprint to figure out what dependencies exist, where they exist, and surface any known risks associated with those dependencies. So a really good visual representation of this is a dependency graph, right? So in a dependency graph, here's my application at the very root of it. And then I know I'm bringing in this component here. But look what this component brings in. Not a whole ton, but this one it brings in, right? Look at all these components that this one dependency brings in. So this is 2 layers deep, 3 layers deep, 4 layers deep, 5 layers deep, 6 layers. You got to gain this visibility to understand what open source is actually proposing a risk. And you need to investigate this, right? Not having this visibility, you have no idea what components are bringing in what. So that's the first step to gaining that visibility is supervision. Then once we have this visibility, we want to be able to bring the ability to respond to these risks closer to the point with where they arise. So that means integrating into certain parts of the SDLC to identify what's risky and where and how. With the SDLC, everybody's SDLC is different, but a very kind of standard one is you have your ID where you code, you have your Git repo where you store your code, and you have your CI/CD where you build and deploy your code, right? So integrating into each part has its benefits, right? So for the IDE, you catch stuff way early. You find that risk way earlier. It doesn't reach prod because you're addressing that risk super early. Build or your Git repo, you can go ahead and address risk right within the Git repo to maybe existing code that you have there in that part of your SDLC, right? Establishing the risk there and surfacing the risk there. And then you have the CI/CD where you go ahead and build the application, go ahead and deploy. That's builds into the next area, which is the enforcement, right? We've gained visibility with supervision. We're integrating in different parts of the SDLC to surface those risks that the dependencies are bringing in. Now we want to start enforcing. Now, what does that actually mean? That means putting policies and leveraging these integrations to implement those policies, right? So typically people say break the build if there's critical or high. Not every single time, right? You don't necessarily have to break the build anytime there's anything, okay? Depends. So if there is a super critical, dangerous, it has a fix available for it, its dependency is reachable, it has a method or function that's reachable, all these different kind of criteria. The EPSS is 98% likelihood it'll be exploited in the next 30 days, right? All these kind of criteria, yeah, all the switches are on for a super dangerous vulnerability or issue. Break the build. That's what it's meant for. But then you have this other risk that we've been talking about. Unmanaged dependencies, name confusion attacks, keep an eye out for this component. If it has this name, maybe warn because it's susceptible to name confusion attacks. Not necessarily breaking a build, but letting somebody know, hey, this component that is in your pipeline here hasn't been updated in our environment in 3 years. It's 25 versions behind than what's currently out there. It's not a major version change, right? They've all been incremental versions. So maybe we do want to consider upgrading it because it won't introduce a breaking change. All these kind of different things, maybe warn at that position instead. But enforcement is that kind of last step of gaining this visibility and understanding the risk throughout the entirety of the SDLC. So again, it's you got to find first, you got to understand and gain the visibility with supervision. You have to integrate across the entirety of the SDLC to understand where these risks show up in which parts of the SDLC, and then have those kind of policies and enforcements to leverage those integrations and being able to prevent any super dangerous things from getting out there and being deployed, and from letting the user know about the additional risks that may pose, but maybe warning them instead. So that's about visibility. Thank you again. Please feel free to reach out with any questions, and thank you for watching. We will see you in the next one. Bye now.